by giving him a primary victory.
What do you think, Matt? Do you agree? I mean, it seems like Lamar Alexander's been around forever. I remember when he was Secretary of Education many moons ago. But is compromise a dirty word these days for true conservatives?
Well, I think compromise is certainly scrutinized, and I think the problem for Lamar Alexander is he has always had a pretty strong conservative voting record, but in the last 3 years it's gotten increasingly worse, and his American Conservative Union voting record was only 60% conservative, so he's gotten himself some primary opponents for that reason. The good news for Lamar Alexander is he has more than one primary opponent. That's a good rule for incumbents who don't want to lose in primaries, have that anti-vote get split up amongst a couple of different folks. So I do think Lamar Alexander is in a good position to win. And overall with the Tea Party, let's face it, they've had an influence on the Republican Party, and they've had a good influence on keeping it conservative. Sometimes their candidates haven't exactly met the muster of what voters are looking for, and when they don't, they lose. All right.
Jump on the plane and move from Nashville to northern Iraq. It's quite a transition. We have a situation right now with these Christians who are trapped essentially in the crossfire with ISIS, ISIL, whatever you want to call them. Brad, should we be doing whatever we can to get relief to these people, and does that include some sort of military action?
Well, I think it includes all the above, humanitarian military action. When our president precipitously left Iraq, you could have written this chapter years ago. The fact is the president telegraphed we were leaving, we did leave, and we're seeing the humanitarian crisis unfold. But just giving aid, humanitarian aid alone, without the infrastructure of housing and security and toilets and all the things that people need in order to sustain themselves, just dropping aid and having the warlords take it and creating a black market or using it for themselves is not the answer.
Yeah, what would you say, Matt? I mean, look, the Kurds in this part of the world, in northern Iraq, they're the most friendly to the West, they're the most democratic,
right.
They're friendly to the United States, and I feel like we've abandoned them.
Yeah, I mean, they must feel that way, and I think what this White House is more concerned with is taking symbolic actions, and I think that's really all this is. If they really want to help these people, they need to get down there with boots on the ground and create an infrastructure to help them. Their Iraqi policy, their policy around the globe is kind of the opposite of the Reagan peace through strength, and it's like war through weakness. And I think we're seen as weak, and I think it's awfully dangerous. And when it gets down to the human toll, the human being whose life is at risk because of American weakness, it really makes my stomach turn. And I think the White House needs to get a message. I don't think they're going to get that message sailing around Martha's Vineyard, however.
Brad, very quickly, just to follow up on what Matt said, I mean, does this country have the stomach for more boots on the ground in Iraq?
Well, it's not whether we have the support, it's the right thing to do, and leadership requires people doing things not because it's going to satisfy people instantaneously. It's because we understand what our obligations are as a great power. We have an obligation to the people of Iraq to help them, and not just merely giving them food or shelter. We need to give them the kind of tools they need to be the free nation that they should be, and especially the Kurds. They've had the most peaceful reign in almost a third, two-thirds of their country, as opposed to the South. They deserve our help.
Well, we may be hearing from the president later tonight on this very issue, but Matt Schlapp and Brad